Hello everyone! This video here is going to be an archive of a live stream that I did. I made a pin board. The audio got really messed up and really glitchy, so I figured I would just do a voiceover for the first half, and then the second half of the audio will be fine, if a little still muffled. So for this pin board, supplies-wise, you will need paper with a printed image for the background. In this case, I chose a map from Uncharted 2 because the pins are Uncharted pins. And then the backing, you will use a sort of plastic mesh that's used for cross-stitch patterns. And then the whole thing will be housed in a shadow box. So what I did here was I took the inside of the shadow box, because that's how big the mesh needs to be. So I just traced the inside of the shadow box so that I could have a rough size estimate. I used a Sharpie pen right here so that it would show up. The mesh that I'm using is Joann's brand mesh. You can find it in the embroidery and cross-stitching section. I believe 10 count mesh. I'm not entirely sure what the numbers mean, but it says 10 on the label. And then of course, using your crafting scissors, you're going to cut out along the line that you've just made. In some cases, the mesh material will have a rough edge to it. That'll be okay, since you're going to be gluing the paper directly onto the mesh. It will actually cover up any raw edges. And then you're going to want to test fit the mesh to make sure that it will, just to make sure it's happy inside the little frame that you're going to be putting it in. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect fit, but you want to make sure that it's, not going to leave any big gaps. Now that I have the mesh cut out, I lay it over the image so I can basically figure out exactly how I want the back of the pins to look. I printed the image a bit bigger than the actual size of the shadow box, so I ended up just kind of cutting into the actual image itself. So here what I'm doing is I'm adding an extra 1/2 inch around the outside of where the mesh will be. And this is because you want to be able to fold the paper over the mesh and glue it down. So you want a good size fold. 1/2 inch is just kind of always my go-to measurement for seam allowance. Always make sure that you've got your ruler nice and held down so it doesn't move around. Now that I have the cut lines drawn for the map, I'm going to cut along the lines that I just drew. And for this project, I actually used a stationary, like, photo paper cutter. You can get these at stationery stores and all kinds of things. I use it when putting together photo displays for designs and things, so it's a really handy little device to have. And so you'll notice here that the image itself looks to be off-center. Again, that's because the white section will be folded around the edge. So now the next step that I did was I needed to create the edge itself. So using the mesh backing, I placed it against the paper. I ended up having to, because it's clear mesh on white paper, you might want to put some kind of color back there. Using my ruler, I measured 1/2 inch into the paper, placed the mesh right along the edge of the ruler, and then you just fold over the paper on the mesh, creating a crease as you go. And you'll want to do this on all 4 sides. Another nifty tool that I have that you can use is called a bone folder. And this is just used to help make creases in paper a lot more crisp and clear. If you are doing some sort of paper craft like origami or something like that, it's really helpful as well. It's a really helpful little tool. And using it, you just fold along the side, and you'll want to make a nice, clearly defined fold in the paper. And again, you'll do this for every side of the image that you want to attach to your backing. As far as backings go, I'm sure if you wanted to, if you didn't want to use mesh, I'm sure you could probably use maybe a cork board or maybe like a thick cardstock material. This plastic mesh is just what I had on hand, and since I use it in a lot of cross-stitch and embroidery projects. But you can really use anything. I'm sure you could probably even use corrugated cardboard if you needed to. Just make sure that you're using what you're comfortable putting your pins through, because you will have to stick your pins all the way through the material so that you can attach the backing onto the pin. And so now that I have my creases in the paper all ready to go, I have these tiny little boxes at the corners of the paper. Those will just get cut off so that you get a nice clean fold around the sides of your backing material. And I believe I made a bunch of jokes about this in my live stream. Always make sure that when you're doing something like this, you are using your craft scissors and you are not using, you know, your fabric scissors. And I do apologize for the quality of the next few minutes of the video. This is where my stream began to get a little glitch happy. I think is the main reason why maybe my audio desynced and everything. But I just wanted to make sure that I got this out there so that people in the pin trading community can make their own little display boards and things like that. Make sure to check in the description of the video and I will link to all of the materials that you will need. And now you're ready to glue the paper directly onto the back material. I would prefer to have used rubber cement for this project, but unfortunately I was completely out of rubber cement. So instead I used Elmer's craft glue, which also worked really well. It comes down to personal preference how you would like to glue the material. So when gluing, make sure that you put the glue directly into the fold of the paper. That when you fold the paper over and press down, you're not going to end up with any glue seeping out the sides of the paper and sticking to any of the materials that you have. The Elmer's glue does leave a bit of a wrinkle to the paper, but it's not too bad and it really worked for this project. Okay, I am going to drop out now as the rest of the video will have sound, but unfortunately the mic got moved around, so I apologize since it's not great. Okay, so here we go. We're ready to see if the paper stuck to our Uncharted map. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay. Sorry if I keep bumping the mic, guys. Okay. So, next, it's still a little bit damp, but that's okay, because we're not actually going to be putting the pins through the, we're not actually going to be putting the pins through the glue, because I know Davkis really enjoys these pins, and he might want to wear them, one day. So, let's decide what order they're gonna go in. So, I think they should go in this order. But, unfortunately, I don't want to block out too much of this. So, we might move everybody down just a bit. So that way, we still have the question mark, we've still got the key, we've still got the general, map. Oops. Okay. So, people wear pins? I know, right, D-Minor? Like, who wears... Actually, okay. So I am going to go off on a little bit of a ramble about why I love enamel pins so much. So I love enamel pins because you can probably tell when I move the pin around, the line art is metal. It's the metal backing is the line art for your design. And then the color is the enamel. But here's the thing about enamel pins. Enamel doesn't shine the way metal does. So you have to make a design that is a balance between your line art and your actual coloring. If you get too fancy with an enamel pin, when the light hits it and it shines, it just becomes a mess. The Uncharted pins are very close to that line. You can see, like, with Sullivan's shirt, how the pockets kind of pop. And the lines in his hair, the gray in his hair, just, it pops because it's made out of metal, whereas the rest of him is made out of enamel. It's so hard. It seems like it would be easy, but it is so hard to make a good enamel pin. Like, you really, really need to have experience to get the balance right. Okay, so, tiny ramble over. Let's make sure that we all have them standing on the same plane. So we want to make sure that they're all standing together. So they're all in a straight line. Okay. Probably should have done this when we took all the backs off. Probably should have taken all the backs off first. Okay. So let's start with Sully. Okay, and then we're going to go off of Sullivan. We're going to go off Sully to make sure that everyone is standing even. Oh, I feel like Drake's a little too high. Crap. There we go. There we go. So there we go. So now we've got Sullivan. We've got Drake. Let's do Elena next. Let's make sure she's standing in the same spot. Now I could just go off of the grid on the back, but all of the pins, like the actual little part, is in a different spot for each pin. Okay, so now we've got Elena, and now, lastly, I can never remember her name. I know that she's in the new, Lost Legacy, I think, is the name of the game that she's in, but I can't remember her name. Davkis, can you remember what is the Chloe? And she, oh, oops, I dropped the pin. She's got an easy name to remember too. I can't believe I can't remember it. Alright, so let's make sure she's standing on the same level. as everyone else. There we go! That's looking good! This is looking good! This is gonna be good! That's some good stuff right there! That's some good stuff! Look at that! Look at that! That looks nice! Nice! Okay. So, now we've got to mount it into our shadow box. And this is going to kind of be the difficult part because this is just a regular shadow box. And I'm not sure how well this is going to... Whoa! You okay there, Sullivan? They kind of go all over the place. Okay, so let's put them in there. Let's put it in there like that and just kind of push it in. Just kind of push it so that it's even. So let's see. So I like that. Just, okay, I might have to like glue Sullivan or something. He's not... Sully! You old fart. Stay still. Don't make me have to glue you. Frickin' Sully. Okay. So let's try again, and let's try and keep them from sliding all over the place. So the great thing is that the mesh just kind of bends. Okay. So now that we have them... There we go. So now that we have this, in order to keep it in place, we're going to take some masking tape and we're just going to tape the mesh directly to the inside edge of this part of the box. I'm using masking tape because it'll hold everything in place, but it won't damage the shadow box. So if I decide to take everything out and like repurpose the shadow box, the masking tape's not going to pull up any of the paint or anything. So let's just get a big square of the masking tape. Alright, and we're just going to tape onto the mesh, and then just slide it right onto the shadow box. We're gonna get another square, or kind of a rectangle, but it's fine. Rectangles or squares. I'm gonna turn it this way so you can see how I did it. I just laid it on the mesh, and then I just, kind of ran my finger along the edge and then put it up against the shadow box. So I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna push it all the way to the edge. Gonna run my finger over the crease, and then just put it directly on the shadow box. It got a little bit of extra, that's okay. If you wanted to, you could probably use washi tape for this if you wanted it to be visible. Wait, did you just say rectangles or squares? Yes. Is it the other way around? Is it squares or rectangles? Help me out, chat. Is it the other? I'm sorry. It's the other way around. Hey, I'm not a mathematician. Okay, I'm not a mathematician. I'm a costume designer, and rarely do you have to costume design squares. All right. Okay, so we got one more to do. Alright, so now, and the great thing about the Penny Arcade pins is I can tell which way is up, because all of the pins have these little ears, so I know which way is up. Okay, so now we put the backing in, move the little thing so it can get hung on the wall, put all the little pegs down. Just like that, and ta-da! Okay everyone, that's it for the archive of my stream where I made a little Uncharted pin display. Again, sorry for those audio issues in the second half of the video. I'm still a little new to the streaming and everything, but if you're interested in my pin displays or the kind of projects that I'm working on, or if you're interested in me streaming, then be sure to follow me on Twitter where I post pictures and links and all that kind of fun stuff. I hope you found this stream at least a little informative, and everybody be safe, stay hydrated. Thanks for watching.